The court of Order in the court. You're listening to the Court of Public Opinion, and I am the judge proceeding over the case. And this is a case of, well, Christians in the courtroom. And I want to hear from you, those who have been on the Rapture Watch, if you want to respond. So welcome to the courtroom. Our first witness is going to be Rachel. You were on the previous court session, and I want to talk to you directly. Rachel, come to the front here, and you can have a seat. Thank you, Rachel. Rachel, I just have a few questions. Basically, what we talked about the last time, I noticed a lot of people are being banned and persecuted, and I want to talk to you personally about this because I know that you have a lot of good answers and you've been very honest with me, and I know that you have been personally struggling with some things yourself. So my first question is, have you recently been persecuted for your faith? And can you elaborate a little? Well, yeah, I have been mocked somewhat. That's not really anything that I haven't been used to. I've been a Christian all my life. I've been a Christian since I was 7, so I've endured bullying. I've endured a lot of abuse. It's the nature of the beast to want to attack the weaker people. So I considered myself weak then because I really was a young Christian, and I backslid, and I altogether left and walked away and backslid and did a lot of that stuff that a lot of people end up doing, and they get discouraged and walk away. And this time I held my position, and I feel strongly about my faith. Okay, all right. So you've experienced it before, though, so you're kind of used to it, more or less. Well, not that I'm used to it. No, I wouldn't say I would get used to this mistreatment, because the maltreatment is maltreatment, and it's something you don't really forget. It's just, you just let it go, and you just hope and pray that justice will be served at some point. And I think that's a lot of the reason a lot of people wait for this rapture watch is because there's a lot of injustice that has gone unchecked or ignored or just not on. I mean, a lot of times what ends up happening is we end up getting in trouble, and the Christians are oftentimes the bad guys, and it just works out that way. Sometimes Christians end up going to court or going to jail for things because they're defending themselves, and they're defending themselves against bullies, or they're defending themselves against something that's happening, and they get caught up in something, and that's how the justice system really, really works. Okay, so what you're saying is that it's been going on for a while, and justice has a way of catching up with the things that are happening. Yes, that's pretty much what happened. That's pretty much how things end up working out. And I'm not against the idea of justice at all. I'm not against the idea of things being made right. And I believe that's what the Lord has done in my life, is things have a way of working out. And a lot of times I may have been wrong myself. So this is a time to really get right with the Lord. So there's a couple things that every situation brings in sometimes to really look at ourselves. But I'd say for the most part there is persecution, and it is ramping up, and there's a lot of things that are happening right now that I think is targeting uh, people of faith. And I want to say this: there's a lot of people of faith that are not walking it out. They're walking some kind of faith, but it's not the Christian faith. Even if they say they are Christians, they may not be really sincere. And there's a lot of people are disgusted with the insincerity. Like to say God bless abortion, that's not Christian at all. And I can tell you for a fact that God does totally what it's a total rebuke. So there's a lot happening in the church right now that's very divided, and this happened in the beginning of America's inception. Whenever the church grew, it became divided, and it that's why there was 13 colonies. That's why there was 13 states, and so on and so forth. So the future of America is that the church is going to split off now. The Episcopal Church is split off because of the homosexual leadership. There's a lot of churches that have split off in the Episcopal Church. And I believe there's a lot of other churches that have also split off as well. So I'm not sure where it's all headed, but I'm going to tell you there's a lot of division right now. And there's a lot of division in the church. Okay, we do see that because, especially in the archdiocese and some of the bishops, there has been a lot of votes to split off. So I wanted to ask you a question about some of the people that you've met or maybe you've seen online. What are your feelings about the online church system that is kind of developed? I think that it's the same thing. There's a lot of people with division. There's extreme division online church. I think there's more division online than there is with. I'm not talking about leadership. Believe me, I say there's a lot of division in smaller groups. One of the things I learned is that small groups work. When it gets too big, it's time to assess what it is that you want to do. Just like in any organization, once you get too big, it's time to decide how you want to split off. Like a lot of times they'll have I like what I'm seeing in some of the organizations that have an online church. Like they have a school of prophecy. They have another, they can entertain in different ways. Like I wouldn't entertain 24/7 because that's not what you want to do. It's, you can't look at church as a complete entertainment. It would be exhausting and it would be hard on the pastor. And I see that as sometimes a negative. Like I don't think it's the pastor's responsibility to entertain people. I think it's his responsibility to stay healthy. I see a lot of pastors that go online and they think they have to entertain their, online church. And I don't think that's appropriate at all. I think it's appropriate to take breaks, and I think that everybody should be very respectful of that. And I think that most people are willing to look at that and they're saying, hey, this is a real thing. This online internet church is a real thing. And when it isn't, then what happens to that internet church? Because you don't have that connection unless you have the internet or some way to stay connected. So the best way to stay connected is through a newsletter, and I noticed that is the best way to stay connected if you can't stay connected on the internet. So I think that the strategy is working, and I think a lot of churches are, again, divided on how to keep a church together, because a church divided, just like a nation divided, is not going to it's not going to stay together too long if it keeps going that way. Well, the nation was built upon principles of faith. And faith is what gets this country through things, believe it or not. It's not money, that's for sure, because this country didn't always have money. In fact, it was a very poor country, but it had a will to survive and live those first couple years in the beginning. And one of the things I want to end with is I want you to at least just say a few words about this so we can end this session here. I would like to have you back because I enjoyed the time that you told me about this, about saving the Constitution. The Constitution is in peril. And a lot of the things that we're seeing right now is that the Constitution's being trampled on. And in this day and age, what we need strong, freedom-loving Americans to know that's what keeps a government, let's just say a government intact. And what I wanted you to say is, what I want you to say is, what I'm saying is that America needs to stay intact. Well, that's exactly right. America has to stay intact because we need our nation to be faithful to God, and that's the best way to do it. Well, thank you very much. You're welcome very much. I don't think that America stands a chance at surviving, not because of evildoers or attackers that want to destroy America's infrastructure. I think America's best days are ahead of them if we can do one very simple thing, is just tell people to start praying. And it's basically that simple. God will hear the prayers of his children and hear the cry. Otherwise, what really it comes down to is the thing that we talked about the last time, is the rapture. It may just come down to that. It may just come down to very few faithful people. Because God said, he said, will I find any faith towards the end? It may come down to the very few faithful few. Because that's really how Delaware was won. It was the very few faithful ones that lasted to the Battle of Delaware to keep America, to literally save America. So, I don't know who, we got to be able to identify the adversary. That's what America's problem is. And with adversaries that want to destroy America, that want nothing but hatred towards America, or want death to America, I think you can pretty much figure out who is behind the death to Americans. And if you can find out that, and you can answer those questions, I think that most people will find out real quick how serious it is, the war that we've been fighting since 2001. Who's really behind it? Who's really pulling the strings, the puppet strings? You know, when you hear this report in Afghanistan, and then you hear what happens to Americans who've, given so selfishly of their lives, you know that we have a great battle ahead of us. I appreciate your time. Thank you.